there is that little gap between the established market and the new, but there will be a compression at some point in time. When the market does improve, you'll see people feel a bit richer because their asset will have gone up a little bit in value. And I think that will help propel certain markets, especially that are catering into that downsize of product. And that new book is going to be called 1,000 Reasons Not to Buy Property, because I think between the market, we've heard them all. It's my dog ate my homework, my dog ate the contract, whatever it is, we've heard them all this year. If you can somehow marry this expectation and the price point, I think you'll end up in a really strong position, regardless if you're selling an apartment in the inner city, whether you're selling a townhouse in the outer suburbs. Urban plays a big part of our marketing mix for all of our projects.
So I'm here with Darren Blair from Blair Property. Great to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too.
Well, you're actually one of the first people that we had. I think the second or third video we did, and the first person we've invited back. So welcome back to Market Insights, my friend. How you been?
Very good, very good. Embracing the winter cold in Melbourne. It's certainly got pretty cold out there. So doing what we can in a time when we're obviously all just fighting through the market. We're all trying everything we can, but yeah, great to be back on.
Yeah, awesome, man. And look, I think, as you said, the market is a bit chilly out there, and so is the weather. Yep. So it's about trying to find those warm spots and finding where consumer sentiment is stronger. And certainly, I think people overgeneralize often in terms of the property market. Really, there are so many markets within markets. What are the markets that you're finding are performing better?
Well, I think they've all got merit. And I think, as you say, you can paint a broad brush. And I think everyone likes to say, what's the median house price for a particular suburb or even state, for example. But I don't think that paints the full story. I think there are markets within markets. There are projects that are in those markets that are performing really, really well. What we are finding at the moment, and we've obviously got a bit of a spread of different price points, from townhouses in the sort of 700s all the way up to luxury apartments in $5, $10, $15 million apartments in our portfolio. But the reality is that I wouldn't say that there is one market that is absolutely outstripping the other, but there are certain projects that are having their time in the sun right now. And I think that comes down to a few factors, and we can obviously go into those in detail, but it obviously comes down to the right product. Obviously designing a good product that meets the market in terms of their expectations. And then also too is obviously a price point perspective. If you can somehow marry the sort of expectation and the price point side of things, I think you'll end up in a really strong position, regardless of if you're selling an apartment in the inner city, whether you're selling a townhouse in the outer suburbs, and even as far as the greenfield perspective. So if you find a way to meet the market, understand how do we get the right product into their hands at the right price point, which is a challenge. There's no easy silver bullet to it all, but that is often when we're seeing the results start happening, is when people start to see that little value equation. When it ticks over in their head, that's when we see the magic happen. Totally.
And I mean, actively, we're working on lots of different projects together right now. And as you say, everything from townhouse projects to Alan Samuel's Louise project, which is an absolute ripper. You've done a deal on off the back of an urban lead on every single project we've worked on together so far. And so whenever we hear that you're on we've got a mutual customer, we like it because we know the consumer is going to get a good experience, and you're going to convert the leads, which is good for our relationship with the market as well.
For sure. And then at the end of the day, we are really grateful for the relationship we have, and urban plays a big part of our marketing mix for all of our projects. And the reality is that the marketing mix is an interesting one at the moment, because we're working with projects that need marketing budgets to stretch for a little longer, that to probably go a little bit further. So it's great to have a channel that we can rely on, and that we've had deals come throughout this year across every project, as you mentioned.
And I wanted to talk, I think that making these videos is practical as possible, and I think the example what you have done with the M3 townhouse project, and by way of background for those that don't know, so it was a large volume of smaller sites, they're 2 to 3 townhouses per, is that right?
Yeah, 4 or 5 townhouses per site. So when we met with the M3 team, fantastic team that we've already sort of grown really fond of over a couple of years now working with them, what ended up happening was that they had a brand that really sort of sat behind the scenes from a sort of B2B perspective.
Right.
With their new sort of strategy sort of moving forward in terms of developing, building and architecting their own projects, we felt that it needed to have a very consumer-based flavor. So we sat with the team at M3, and they sort of trusted in the strategy, which was a very collaborative approach. We engaged Studio White Noise, who did a fantastic job on the brand itself. That brand was there to basically create a presence within their market, which is the inner sort of northeast, everything up to about Fitzroy. So we're about to launch one in Preston, but for the most part, most of the projects are in the reservoir sort of suburb and surrounds.
Yeah.
Now, what the whole idea was, right now, confidence is low on builders. Confidence is pretty low on developers in some cases, especially unknowns in the market.
100%.
So it was our job to try see if yes, we are unknown, but this team comes with a big track record of delivery projects for the last 20, 30 years. But it was about sort of showing the market that this is their new presence, where they're going to be delivering the outcome for everyone that inquires and all the way through to sale. And then obviously settlement itself. So ended up working with them. We created a new brand, and that brand, the whole strategy was then to sell that one project, move on to the next, sell that one project, move on to the next. So people knew that if they don't get into the 4 or 5 that are in the first project, then they'll miss out. So, and that seems to have worked. We've only got one left in 2 projects. We've sold out of one. We're about to launch our next run of projects with them.
I think it's about when the market is tough. It's about finding ways to get deals to happen. And I think, as you said, the biggest barrier outside of the financial constraints that people have right now is about the trust profile with developers. Obviously, we're trying to do our best in terms of bringing developers forward and getting them to be the star of the show alongside the project marketers, but giving consumers confidence around, this is what we've done before, and this is the next one, and this is the next one. The way you guys integrated along with Studio White Noise in terms of creating that story and narrative, and as each one goes on, A, you're building a database. B, you've got something to show them. And C, there's that scarcity element because this is sold out, but you've got another product to sell them. I think that was one of the better project marketing jobs I've seen, in fact, because I think like it speaks to the current problems in the market and the things that are stopping deals from going through. And I think so many people out there in the market's hard. It's like, you've got to actually like figure this shit out and come up with solutions that address the objections of the now.
Well, yeah, and I think the objections is an interesting one. I've had a running joke for the last six months, and it's not by no ways negative. It's just sort of funny way to look at the market. And basically, was going to go around to every developer and agent and project market and basically get them to write a chapter. And that new book is going to be called 1,000 Reasons Not to Buy Property, because I think between the market, we've heard them all. Yeah. It's my dog ate my homework, my dog ate the contract, like whatever it is, we've heard them all this year. So it's about finding part of our job as agents and working very closely with developers that are here to understand both. We are the sort of channel between the buyer getting the deal done and obviously them on the other side. For us, it's really important to have the ability to almost not get creative, but you have to sort of be able to address the objections in a rapid moment to say, this is the purchaser, this is their issues, this is the things that they're concerned about, this is the things that is probably a hurdle for them to move forward and buy. How do we actually take them with tender love and care and actually get them across the line in the best, fastest way possible, and which addresses their concerns and objections? Because that's the biggest challenge at the moment, is that in most markets, in a more balanced to probably a better sort of selling environment, what you end up with is that there's enough drive and enough push from a call it a FOMO perspective, where people go, it doesn't have to be FOMO in an absolutely hot market. I'm just saying it's like, okay, well, I'm going to miss out on this product and there might not be that many opportunities for me to buy again. So I need to make the transaction. And there's almost a momentum push as part of that. It's people to transact.
It's that scarcity from, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Correct. And then so people transact. But now in a market when they think they've got a bit of time, what you have is you've got to be able to sort of coerce and sort of help move them along that journey in the same way, because you don't want them to be okay to miss out in that context. You want them to still sort of have the fire to keep going. And the issue is that if they find that one objection that they hang on to, it's really hard to sort of move them through it if they find it. So it's our job, the whole team that's working on the project's job, to really sort of be creative and help people through and get them to the other side, which is obviously a good outcome for everyone.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that we're going to see a tremendous amount of price escalation over the next 12 to 24 months in the apartment market. The projects that like Louise and other bigger projects where they're pretty competitively priced in terms of the price per square meter and the overall value proposition, because they were based on obviously construction contracts, and a lot of those prices were set before we had some of the inflation enter the market. Yep. I think one of the key challenges that consumers are unaware of is that they are better off purchasing now because the next wave of projects that are going to come through are going to be 20, 30% more expensive.
Yes.
And I think that's going to catch a lot of people off guard.
Correct. And that has been the trend for the last little while. And then one trend in the market is that gap between, call it established property or stuff that's just completed versus stuff that has to come to market, because the stuff that has to come to market has to be at a certain price point to work.
Yeah.
Unless you are willing to develop for free or lose money.
And take the risk on.
And take the risk on. There's just no reason for the property, the replacement value just doesn't work. So at the same time, there's going to be an adjustment. I think this is a known personal prediction. I'm not an economist, just someone that sells property and and looks at the market every day of my life and prices hundreds of projects a year type of thing. But besides that, we tend to see that like there is that little gap between the established market and the new, but there will be a compression at some point in time.
I agree.
Maybe when interest rates drop, I don't know.
I think what's going to happen is as interest rates come down, people's ability to borrow more is going to go up. That's going to close that gap. And then because ultimately the off the plan market is competing with the established market.
It is.
A lot of people forget that.
Very much so, especially the most recent completions, which are still trading effectively off construction pricing, which might have been 2018, 2019, 2020 sort of thing. But those will wash their way through and there will still be a new wave. And some people have a flight to new, and there are still a lot of people in the market that have a desire to buy absolutely brand new. That's just the way that they're wired.
I mean, you look at the value prop, it's like we've got more double glazing, newer technology, better materials. And that's certainly not the case all the time. But when you're buying from a good developer that has the track record and you've done your due diligence on, I think the value proposition of new is strong. And I think we just need to remember that people do like living in brand new properties in the same way they like driving a brand new car.
Correct. Exactly. But just a quick little change of tack, when the market does get ultimately a little bit better, maybe it's on the interest rate side of things, especially in markets where you've got people that are trading for purchase. So what I mean is obviously many downsizers or right sizes or however you want to term them. We often talk about they buying with two different price points in mind. They're buying with what they're going to sell their home for, and then they're also buying obviously what they're going to be replacing that house or asset with. So we watch that, especially in markets like sort of Brighton and the Melbournes and the Armadales and stuff like that in Caulfields, where people are trading out of those like $2, $3, $4, $5 million homes. What are they switching it out for is the big question. If they feel that the market's soft on that side, they'll often sit on their hands and they'll wait because it doesn't serve them to sell right now unless there's a full lifestyle change that they need to do it for. So when the market does improve, you'll see people will feel a bit richer because their asset will have gone up a little bit in value and stuff like that. And I think that will help propel certain markets, especially that are catering into that downsizer product.
I totally agree. And I think like that gap is something that most people don't understand, but when people work directly in the sector like we do, and particularly when you're working on a number of these projects where you're talking to customers and understanding those trade-offs, that's definitely the thing where they want to have a nest egg that's left over. They sell their property in a high-end property, they want to have a gap for their apartment.
Well, interesting. Some do and some don't. Funny enough, there's actually what we find is we've got sort of two types of those, the right size or downsizer buyers. We find we've got some that have the wealth or the means to. This is more in the luxury market, obviously, but they have the wealth or the means to say, okay, I'm just trading assets right now. I just sold my house for $4 million. I'm going to buy an apartment for $4 million. The asset itself is my lifestyle, and I can afford it. I don't need the money pulled out of it. Then you've got others on the other side, which do think that they, for many different reasons, but will think, okay, I'll sell for 3 or 4, and I'll buy for 2, 2.5. It'll leave me whatever that buffer is. That buffer is 2 different reasons. One, sail around the world, go on as many cruises as you like, or it's actually, we've seen quite a lot of where it's actually happened in certain projects where they're selling out of the home. They're going to probably have a couple mil difference between the two. They've taken $1 million and they've said, okay, we're going to give one child $500,000, one $500,000 to buy their first home, or help them into the market. It doesn't have to be 500, it can be whatever, it can be 50, 100, whatever it is, but it gives them the help, the start that they want to help their kids into their first homes. It happened, interestingly enough, on 2 of our projects where they bought in one. We knew that they were selling their family home. They came to us and said, our children are actually having a hard time finding a project in a different area. And we were able to put them into their children, and they helped them with the deposit and all that sort of thing. So it happens. And that's the other type of buyer that's not just trading off against the asset itself. So,
well, Darren, also to catch up with you. Cheers for coming in. That's some like good practical insights. And I think that's what I think we've done more than 50 of these videos. So thank you for being number 3 and I think number 63 at this point. And I think they're getting better all the time, and I appreciate you coming and sharing like practical things that developers can be thinking about. So great to see you.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.